Hello and welcome to the Hmong Women Podcast. I'm Ariel.
I'm Dochi.
And I'm Emily.
Today we're going to be talking about feeling lost in your 20s. Yeah, let's dive right in. So, in what ways have you ladies felt lost in your 20s?
So, for me, I felt very, very, very lost. And I used to feel like it was a journey that I was too embarrassed to talk about because I thought I was the only one lost. Until I hit like my late 20s, getting closer to my 30s, I started to realize that essentially I feel is what the 20s is about. It's what everyone keeps saying. It's your time of learning who you are. So take this time to experiment, to figure out what is fitting for you and what isn't. And some people embark that a lot earlier than others, realizing what is for them and what's not for them very early on. Others get onto it very late. That was me. Starting with education, when I first went to college, I had no idea what I was going for. I just felt like I had to get it done. Like college was a necessity because of the way that my family talked about it. Like I had to get my bachelor's and then I had to go and get my master's, which I don't have. And it was like, you just need to get it done. But I had no idea what I needed to do with it. So I was just randomly taking classes and trying to get a degree done. And also I got married young. My first semester of college after that, I got married at 19. And so I'm juggling, figuring out who I am, what I want to do with my college and then my career, and then being married in the midst of it. I was just very lost overall. So pretty much all aspects of my life, education, career, personal life, family, and relationship all together. I just couldn't figure out really what to focus on. And essentially I decided to not focus on anything. So a lot of it was a blur for me. Yeah.
Nico. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Damn. Okay.
You guys are so ridiculous.
Just for the record, I am still very much in my 20s. I'm 27, but I think, 27, still navigating the waters. I think there are days where I feel very lost navigating my mid to late 20s, where I feel very disconnected and discombobulated with where I am in my career, where I am in life, where I am spiritually. And then there are days where I feel like I am literally the baddest bitch to walk the earth. So there's just, I think, those days. And it really is a mix with where I am. So still navigating that with you. Honestly, I'll check back in when I'm 31. Honestly, because I don't know. Again, I'm still in my 20s. I'm still navigating that myself. But I did very much feel a lot more lost in my early 20s. But right now, I definitely do feel like compared to 5 years ago, I am definitely in a more steady place. I have a good job that I really enjoy. I have my own place. I have my family who's living their own life. And we have regular family issues, but who doesn't? I think that most of my problems right now are usually either out of my control or are a cause of my bad decisions, again, just like everyone else. But I think overall, I'm living a pretty good life. There's not a lot of, I no longer have what is this considered? Not a midlife, a quarter life crisis. I had that a couple of years ago, and I did regret getting my grad degree for a little bit. I was like, why did I even go to school? Why did I get this? Actually, not just my grad degree. I regretted just being alive for a little bit, to be honest. I was like, what is the point of life, honestly? Why are we here? It was like this existential crisis that I was in, honestly. But I think it had a lot to do with everything that's going on right now with what I just discovered. But I think we all have that point where we have this quarter life crisis where we just question literally everything and everyone. And at some point you just realize you just kind of got to take one step at a time to move forward. I think when we talk about like feeling lost in our 20s and like quarter life crises, I think we're like fed so many things about being like X, Y, and Z for so many people, and we forget that we need to be just ourselves for ourselves. We had this conversation before, the three of us, where we're like, whose timeline are you on? Are you on your own timeline? Are you, trying to make your own goals? Are you reaching your own goals, or are you working towards somebody else's goal and timeline? And are you pressuring yourself to meet these goals that you're not passionate about? And is that why you're having a crisis? I know that's why I was. I know that's why I felt lost. I felt like I was trying to like meet this goal of buying a home for my family, and meet this goal of like getting married and trying to be in a relationship, and meet this goal of finding a really high paying job, and trying to like meet these societal expectations of a certain age, because a bunch of my peers were getting there and my like family wanted that. And I just was like, why am I not there? And I was comparing myself to everybody else without realizing that I had already accomplished a lot of things on my own that other people hadn't. And so I know that I felt lost because I was comparing myself to expectations that were hard to meet and to other people.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, similar to you, I had a quarter life crisis. So I'm 26, and it's really hard for me because I felt like I wasn't ever really passionate about anything. So I was passionate about multiple things, but I was never drawn to one thing. And so education wise, like I felt really confused in that area because I didn't know really what I wanted to do. And throughout my life, I've always envisioned myself being different things, whether it was, so I originally wanted to become a journalist, and that changed to being a lawyer, to being like a pediatrician. And so throughout my entire life, I didn't really know what to do. And so I settled on my health services management bachelor's degree. And I just chose that because I knew it was going to be a booming field, and it was going to be there forever. And I didn't choose it because I loved it. I chose it because of the security blanket, and because it's something that honestly genuinely interested me. And so I felt like my early 20s was really the time where I was just walking aimlessly and just going through the motions. And I went to school because I felt like I needed to, not because I wanted to. And that's what you're told you're supposed to do in your 20s, is you're supposed to graduate, you're supposed to get a job, and I wanted that security. And so after I graduated, the pandemic hit in 2020, and my internship ended, and that left me unemployed for a full month before I got my big girl job. And so that in itself was like a really deep, dark time in my life, because I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I went into corporate. I went to medical malpractice, and that's probably where I felt the most lost, because I feel like I didn't really belong, even though my boss was really nice. I didn't really fit into the company culture, and I just knew I didn't want to do this forever because it didn't really light me up inside. And some days I didn't even want to get out of bed. But I'm actually proud that I went through that phase, because I tried out corporate, and I know now that corporate's not something permanent in my life. But even then, like, I didn't know what to do with my life. And like relationship wise too, when the pandemic hit, I had basically ended a 3-year relationship with my ex, who was involved in infidelity. And I just felt lost because I got to a really deep, dark place in my life where I would blame myself for the small things, because I thought when things were going good, I deserved that. So when things went downhill, I thought I deserved that too. But really spending time with myself and doing self-reflection, I realized that like I had gotten to such a place in my early 20s that I'd stopped caring about my image. I'd stopped working out. I'd stopped eating all the right things, and it was just going downhill, where I was 30 pounds heavier after graduating college, and I just felt lost because I was in this place of constantly showing up for other people around me, but not for myself. And I always constantly, like you, Emily, I felt like I had a lot of responsibilities, and it was really, really just like weighing on my shoulders. Yeah. So did you ladies feel like you needed to have a certain amount of goals checked off by a certain age in your 20s? And if so, why?
I feel like I thought that I would be married by like 25. And then also be on the road to having kids and a house, just your, I want to say almost like typical American dream kind of thing. scenario. Nothing too particular, or was very specific. But by that point, I was already married, and I was on the verge of a divorce, actually. So technically, I checked off getting married. I didn't check off having kids, nor did I check off having a home. And now looking back, I'm still in my 20s. I'm just really excited for my 30s, is what it is. And looking back, I feel like I really only wanted those things because I thought that what if I was hitting those milestones at that time, it would set me up for success for the rest of my life, was the thought. But being young, naive, and not understanding how much more there is to life, I didn't realize that there's so much more that you can do and be successful without having just that, having a marriage, having like a home and like the kids. And I'm really learning that later on here in my 20s, my late 20s. So I still do think that someday I'll get married again and be able to settle down, but it's not a priority of mine. My priority is really just me. Yeah. So that's what's changed essentially, is what I'm prioritizing.
I love that. I love that you're making yourself the priority, because I mean, I've been seeing like this trend on social media of like moms or like women who got married who are like, I wish that I would have made myself a priority a little bit earlier. So I love that. I definitely did have a certain amount of goals that I wanted to check off by a certain age. So I joined the AmeriCorps when I was 20, I think, or 21. This was right in between my BA to my MA program. I think it was somewhere in between that transition. And they had, at our training, they had a question about like, what are your goals 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now? And I remember answering from the 2 to 5 year goals. I'm like, well, by the age of 25, I want to have purchased a home and move my parents in with me. And then I also want to have had at least 50% of my student loans paid off by that age. Yeah, big goals. That did not happen. But those were the only 2 goals that I had for the age of 25. I'm 27 now. None of those goals have happened, but I've accomplished a lot of other things in between that time. The rose-colored glasses are off, and I know that a lot of obstacles were in my way because of that, and a lot of other priorities have come along the way. And I'm happy for a lot of the other things that I accomplished in between those times, even though those 2 goals were not met. And I just think that my mindset has really shifted between when I set my goals at the age of 20 compared to now. I still want to buy a home. I still want to be a homeowner. I still want to get my student loans paid off, my debt paid off. But how I go about it is very, very much different from how I went about it at that age. And in regards to having my parents move in with me, I don't know. We'll see about that. If they even want to live with me, I don't mind having them live with me. I think healing my relationship with them has been very interesting these past couple of months here. But yeah, goals change, things change. And like Dochi, I do look forward to my 30s. I do look forward to continuing to grow. I'm tired of being. Like I told Ariel earlier, I just want like a week of like what it feels like to be at peace. Like a nice vacation of no responsibilities, of nothing. And then I would be happy with that, Just like a week or something of not being like a boss lady. I think I bossed a little too hard, and now I'm a little tired of the responsibilities that have come with it. But
Yeah, I had a couple of goals. I guess looking back at it now, I was never like, I need to get married by 30, but I definitely had goals of where I wanted to finish school, I wanted to get my own car, I wanted to live with my partner, and I wanted to get some sort of job working, in healthcare or upper management. So I did everything but get a healthcare job. And instead, I started my own business. And honestly, it was never really something I pictured for myself, but I was constantly just being inspired by the people who were doing it for themselves and who were prioritizing themselves. And the reason why I wanted to become a virtual assistant is because I really like the flexibility to work for myself and choosing what I did. Because just thinking about that concept in itself, like, because I had come from a corporate background, I was so used to working like a average 9 to 5, or sometimes just even like a 9 to 9. And I got tired of constantly being on, feeling stressed out, feeling like I'm working for someone else on someone else's time, and like having to ask for PTO. Like, I don't know, it shifted something in me where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, why am I actually in corporate? Is it because I want to, or is it because I'm doing it because I think I should? And so that was a really pivotal moment for me. And I think it's also important to note that, like, before I started, because I live with my partner now, before I started thinking about a new relationship or just even thinking about dating, I started on my own personal journey of figuring out who I was and what I wanted and coming home to myself. Because through that journey of coming home to myself, I realized that there were so many other goals that I wanted to do but never had the time for. So I just began doing them. And so, yeah, I just came home to myself. And I think when I really sat back and looked at it too, I was doing most of the things that I thought I should be because I wanted society to deem me as successful. And those were the things that repeatedly were told to me as a kid, is like, if you want to be a successful adult, you need to finish school and do all these things in that order. So that way, you know, you won't be looked down upon in society. So when things changed, how did it feel in that moment, and how did you reevaluate?
So I spent time and I just reevaluated. I knew that I wasn't upset about not accomplishing those goals, because at the time I knew that I didn't believe in those goals, because I was not upset about not accomplishing those goals. About not buying a home, because I was relieved. I mean, it kind of sucks that I'm not like halfway through paying my student debt, but at the same time, I'm okay with it, because again, like, I'm just was constantly tired of like the grinding of constantly working to the bone. Like, I had always worked 2 to 3 jobs, and for the first time in like this past year was the first time I had not been working 2 or more jobs, and I love it. Like, yeah, I'm not debt free, but at least I'm not working myself to the bone trying to get there, and I'll slowly pay off my debt. And people can tell me that that's like really lazy of me or really irresponsible of me, but like, I'm gonna do what I want to do this time around without feeling like I'm working myself to the bone. And I just know that that's what's best for me, because, you know, I had to reevaluate. I really wanted to, and I really needed to. It's not that I wanted to, but I really needed to, because I really did have a silent and unseen mental breakdown. And so what really helped me reevaluate was just seeking help. And I just realized that I can work as hard as I want and, you know, work myself to the bone and get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep every night, and it's not going to get me out of my debt, and it's just going to make me crazy. So why do that when I can enjoy my time and not work 2 to 3 jobs and still pay off my debt? So
I love that,
Yeah.
because you're doing what's most sustainable for you, honestly. Like, it makes sense to me on why you chose that, and obviously it won't make sense to other people, but like, I completely get where you're coming from.
I feel like I briefly touched on this on, you know, when I got my divorce, because that was big picture wise. Getting married, getting a home, having kids were big for me. And of course, when I got divorced, I wasn't necessarily planning on having kids on my own. And I think my mind shift from focusing on these external things that will come when they come, as opposed to just focusing on myself and making sure that what I'm doing is right for me. Because I feel like if I was focusing on me and what's right for myself in that time, eventually these things will come to fruition, and they will come in the right time. And I don't have to be so overly focused with my every movement, my every breath, everything I do, because I forget to live in the moment. So overall, I just feel that I started to focus more on myself as opposed to these other things. Not that they don't matter, but they'll come when they come.
I don't know. I think this was a tough one for me because I was thinking back to when I was having my quarter life crisis, back to the pandemic and like back in 2020, honestly. And during that time, I just felt really lost and I just kept asking myself why. And I re-examined why I did everything. So I asked myself things like, why did I have a failed relationship? Why was I holding myself back? Why didn't I feel like a success, even though I had graduated? And when I thought about all those things, first and foremost, I thought about corporate, where I just kept feeling so lost and I felt like I didn't know what my next step was. And it was putting me in the corner of like constantly feeling scary. It was constantly feeling scary and horrible and anxious. And that was the first time where I didn't know what my next steps were supposed to be. And so I felt honestly disappointed in myself because I thought I was going to like corporate because of the hype and because I thought it'd be the right path for me. But in the end, I just realized on how much I was actually limiting myself, and I had never allowed myself to think outside the box, and I never allowed myself to explore. And through that, I really thought about the baseline of myself. So what did I actually know about me? And I knew that I did well in admin, I did well in management, I'm great at organization, event management, etc. And so what could I do with those skills? And so truly the only things that have changed for me were that I ended up working for myself, and I just never envisioned creating a business for myself because I never saw myself as being an entrepreneur. And I get asked that a lot, and the only thing I can come up with is I created it out of a need and because it was what I was good at. And I created momentum for myself by fueling myself with how much I actually wanted to get out of corporate. So a lot of the times I start out small. So I was doing work on Fiverr, I was doing work on Upwork, and that was just to dip my toes in and to figure out, like, do I actually like this? And is this something that I can envision myself doing for at least the next, 1 to 5 years? And to me, I thought I'd try it out, and if it doesn't work out, the worst case scenario was that I just have to get a normal day job again. And so the other place that I was feeling really lost about was obviously my relationship and breakup, where I'm a internalizer. So when something goes wrong, I really do internalize things, and I tend to blame myself. And so when that happened, I felt like really powerless and blindsided and hurt. And during this time of figuring out my life, I just kept exploring what I did and didn't like. So that looked like to me, like going out on dates with different people to get like a better understanding of my standards and expectations. I explored places and stopped waiting for people. I wanted to figure out other things in my life. So I did that by pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And in previous episodes, I talked about like really building your portfolio of proof, which is where you constantly try new things and you do things that make you uncomfortable so that you build that experience and you prove to yourself that you can actually do it. And so I did all this to see where it would take me, and it ended up taking me on so many adventures that I never pictured for myself. So through that, like I just done some pretty crazy things. Like I've traveled alone, I've gotten my gun permit, I've flew an airplane with a flight instructor. But I think through all of that, I really learned to embrace my solitude, and I've learned to embrace my flaws, and I've learned to enjoy my own company. And I also learned the hard lesson of not waiting for the right person to come along and instead becoming the right person that I needed. And I think that overall picture has made me more free flow. I'm a lot more fun and a lot less restrictive, and I don't take life super seriously because I know that I can choose to change it if I need to.
I love that you said that your focus is to become the person that you need. Mm-hmm. Because how many people are trying to find somebody else to be the person that they need? Mm-hmm. And that's really important, to become the person that you need, because at the end of the day, and we've said this before, I know I have said this before, but you are stuck with your own thoughts. And if you don't like yourself, or if you can't be with yourself at the end of the day, you should really start to like yourself some more, because you are going to be your biggest supporter.
Yeah.
And you have to really like yourself. You have to really build yourself up. And that's what I have here too is where you can't pour from an empty cup. You deserve to experience the world at the same time that other people do. You deserve to experience the world according to, your timeline and your experiences. And you shouldn't hold yourself back because you're scared to, or you're not sure where to start, or because you feel like you're inadequate. I think, especially for me, when I was going through like my quarter life crisis, I was just like, I don't think I deserve to experience anything because I don't know what I want to do. So if I don't know what I want to do, why do I deserve to do anything? And that was specifically my thought process. But at the end of the day, I was like, no, I deserve to like go have fun like any other 25-year-old out there. So I really like that you said that. You need to be the best person for yourself. You are your best advocate at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I feel like maturing is realizing that society has fed us all these lies about how, oh, like even just the slightest ways of when people say, oh, you'll find your better half. It's like, so you're not a full person now?
Right.
Like my better half, like I'm only half of a person. I have to find another person to fulfill me. So little comments like that where it's just like maturing is realizing you need to become the person you're looking for. And at the end of the day, like you said, you can't fill from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, how did you guys reframe your 20s? For me, my 20s was just really confusing, but one thing that I really loved is I've learned to embrace the uncertainty and the feeling of being lost. And I love what Vanessa Lau says. In her most recent video, she talks about how feeling lost is a beautiful thing. It's an uncomfortable stage in your life where your old self is gone and you haven't met your new self yet. Embracing this and reframing it, not as a shameful negative thing, but as a process of life. You realize it's not a crisis, it's the exploratory phases. And I feel like when you realize this and you see that it's okay and that everyone goes through it, it's exciting to think about what else could happen in the future. And also when you realize this, you're able to give yourself more grace and allow yourself to ease into this season of life instead of being so hard on yourself and it constantly being a negative thing. And honestly, to me, it's sort of like fun to envision like meeting my future self and working towards that. I also wanted to add that I honestly stand by the truth that everything happens for a reason. So I have had a couple things pop up in my life where it's like, wow, life really doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. And not only like did my failed relationship in the past teach me the red flags, it also taught me about how I need to learn how to better stand up for myself and how much I value reciprocity. And so that came full circle for me because I've just, over the past couple of years learned to show up for myself and other people in my life.
I have always been the type of person who has been not a go with the flow, but a trust your gut person, because my gut has always led me in the right direction. That's always how I've been. But I've also been a people pleaser. And so my shift and my reframe was always trust your gut and don't be afraid to put up your boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so I've been a lot better at that is, okay, I'm going to trust my gut, but I'm not going to people please as much anymore. So if I have a thought about something, if I think something should go a certain way, I'm going to speak up about it now instead of saying, okay, I think we should do this your way. Or I think that, I think your plans might be a little bit better. And I still try to include other people and try to take care of other people, but I no longer make them my responsibility. I'm no longer am trying to frame myself as a caretaker of other people and a responsible person. I am no longer a responsible person. I am just a person who has some responsibilities. I am not a responsible person. Because then other people will see me as a responsible person and put more responsibilities onto me. So I'm not a responsible person. I'm just a person who has some responsibilities. That's why I've reframed the rest of my 20s. I'm going to trust my gut, and I know that my gut is telling me the right things because it has in the past, and I'm going to go from there.
I've really stepped into learning to be okay with what I want. For a long time, the way I was leading my life was what other people wanted, I thought was what I wanted. Really not wanting to fail other people and not meet their expectations, not realizing like what are my own expectations for me, what's this going to do for me, and being confident enough to say like I don't like that, that's not for me, that's not a path for me. And I think it's allowed for me to be more carefree, which also has been allowing for me to enjoy life just a little bit more, a lot more actually, allowing for me to say like, this is how I want to do it. I grew up from a very, I believe, rigid household, very strict rules. And, to put short, like I had no sense, I felt, of autonomy over myself, my decisions. Like Emily would hear about how I would dye my hair and then the next day it would be back to black because I wasn't allowed. And it's so small things that really led to how the expectations I had for myself and my life, and letting all that go and just really sticking to myself on like, what do I like? What do I want? And what's the vision I see for myself in the future? And what can I do to get there? Like setting aside everyone else and everything else and just imagining me in my bubble really allowed for me to realize what my capabilities are and how I can get there myself. I do also believe in what Ariel said. After my relationship with my ex, I became a very, very strong believer of, everything happens for a reason. And it's because I truly felt like I thought I was doing everything right for a good long part of my life. I want to say that, and my family can correct me if I'm wrong, but I truly believe like I was a very good disciplined child, and it's not a good thing to praise about, I don't feel, because I think it was just really me not wanting to go against the grain. So everything I did was to please someone else. Like, and then when I'm saying that I did everything right to the T, it's what I thought was right. For example, I went to school not because I wanted to go to school. I went to school because I thought it was what my parents wanted, my family wanted. I thought it would make them happy. And I'm not saying it didn't benefit me. It did. It's just, it wasn't for me at that time. If it was on my timeline, I probably would have taken like at least a year or two break before I went to college. When I got married, again, I'm not blaming anyone, but at the time, I truly felt like this would help my family. There are other factors, of course. I was an only child, and I felt like I was putting these responsibilities onto myself that I don't feel anybody really did. I felt like they were very unconscious responsibilities. I felt like I had to be and find the right husband who met all these criterias, because if not me, then who? There's no one else, and I wanted my parents to look good and my family to also look good. And I want to say that for a good amount of time, we were technically like the golden couple, just because that's what people saw. Like, oh, look at you guys, you're so young, and it's a and then it's a and it was such, I think, a surprise to a lot of people when we didn't work out. And I think it's because I can only speak for myself. We were not following a path that was meant for us. We were following a path that was someone else's vision of what they thought was for us. And I was just in a very rigid place. I was doing everything to the T. And even so, working so hard to make sure everything was perfect, everything came out very unperfect, if you want to put it. But I could not have been more thankful for the entire experience and for the way that things turn out. And after that whole experience, I just sat there and thought about, like, I was so mad. Yeah, my initial reaction was so mad, angry that everything's so fucked up. Like, how did I get here? How did I work so hard just to get here? And then I finally came over that bump, and just, it was reframing my mindset and accepting things as is, And you'll hear me say this again. I've said it in previous videos. It's just that work hard towards the things that you love and you're passionate about. But if there's resistance, maybe it's not for you. Because when you're starting to feel that resistance, you know, like when you're trying something, it doesn't work and you keep trying, maybe there's something bigger telling you like, this isn't for you. This is great for that person, but this isn't for you. There's something else that's bigger for you in your path. And I just would not accept the resistance until it was like really deep into it. So reframing, in short, for me was just totally resetting my mindset, being a little bit more carefree, accepting me as how I am and what I truly value in my life, not what my family does or what I think society values, and trying to make it mine.
I love that. It definitely sounds like you went through a journey of self-discovery and self-love, and
Yeah.
you found out what was finally important to you, and you began accepting things for what they were. I know that we've gently touched on it, and I know we probably already have answered this, but did you feel like you were working on someone else's time frame? If so, whose and why? And when did you realize you can make your own timeline?
Yeah, I think I wanted to jump in when Dochi was saying that, because I think a big part of it is we want to meet our family's expectations, because I think a big pressure is because they didn't get to have the opportunities that we got to have. And so we want to fulfill kind of the opportunities that they didn't get to have. And so they put these thoughts in our heads, obviously not with ill intent, of course. I know, at least for my parents and a lot of my aunts and uncles, a lot of them, their thoughts are, if I tell them to, that they're going to do well. And if I tell them to go to college, they're going to go to college, because I didn't get that opportunity. And I want them to have opportunities that I didn't have. So I understand the positive intention and the positive impact they have on that with that. And it has had good intentions and it has had positive impacts. But I also want to point out that in that journey, that because we get so tied to meeting these expectations for our elders, I don't want people to think that I'm blaming our elders. I'm trying to talk about the nuance of getting lost in constantly only focusing on the vision that our elders have for us, and not also mixing in the visions that we have for ourselves, because you can do both at the same time. Both can be true. And that's where I had issues, is I wanted to meet my parents' visions. I wanted to meet mine, but I couldn't get the two to mix. And that's where I had issues. And now I'm making both work for me. That was my quarter life crisis, was I really could not, for the life of me, connect back to the Hmong culture, to my self-image again. And it got to a point where I really they had a head-on collision, and I had to face the facts, is that I just need to reintegrate myself, and I really need to jump what? I need to dive head first. There we go. I don't know what I was trying to say.
English is hard, y'all.
It is. I need to dive head first back into our Hmong customs and history, and understanding who we are as a people, what our spiritual practices are, and who I am as a person, because I can't forget who I am as a person either. And that both can be true at the same time. I can still work, I can still accomplish my goals as an independent Hmong American woman, and still be a daughter, and still accomplish the things that a Hmong daughter can do, still accomplish the things that a Hmong woman can do. And for so long, I thought that the two couldn't be together. I thought that I couldn't accomplish the two goals together. And that was a part of my quarter life crisis. And I think that we get so caught up in trying to, or not all of us, but some of us get so caught up in trying to conflict the two, that we often get lost in the meaning of what our goals are. And I think that that's kind of how I moved forward, is where can I meet the two? Where can I mesh the two together? And that's the journey that I'm on right now, is finding the two. Because if you know me in real life, and in person, you know who I am, and you know that I am the furthest person from telling you to be the perfect Hmong daughter and to like be a stickler to tradition. And it really is, again, it's hard to tell you how to make it a balancing act, because it really is something that you just have to experience and you have to really work on, is finding a balance between the two, is making time for yourself if you really do want to also accomplish, you know, something for your parents. And if you already graduated with your undergraduate degree, that's enough. You don't need to do any more. You don't have to do any more for them. I think that that's enough. And if they continue to pressure you more, it's okay to put up that boundary and say no. I think that's okay to move forward now with your own goals. You've already accomplished something for them. And that's what I mean when I say it's okay to mesh your goals together, that both can be true at the same time. If you've already done something for your elders, now it's time to do something for you. So
That's definitely going to resonate with a lot of people I know, because it really is hard trying to balance those two identities and feeling like it's always constantly clashing.
I love it because that's something that I'm just getting to, where again, I refer back to my ex and I a lot because that was like the majority of my life. But I got to a point where I felt like I really hated the Hmong culture because I felt like it took up my life, and I hated that. I felt like I was contributing so much myself to him and the culture because I loved him a lot, and whatever he loved, I wanted to love, and spending the majority of my days and nights trying to learn what he was learning, and also trying to go out to these events with him to see what he did on a daily. I was heavily in love with the culture, and I've always been, but then it shifted for me to think that I was only in love with this because my partner was in love with it. And so when I came out of it, I told Emily, I was like, I'm not trying to do this anymore. It's tiring. It is tiring. It is exhausting, but I found a fine line between it. I started to go to the home classes too, because I was like, I don't hate it. No matter how much I want to say that I don't want to be involved in it like that anymore. It's hard. I've always been someone who loves being Hmong. Like, and I've also told Emily this before too, where it's like, people who know me in real life, more oftentimes when they first meet me off the bat, they would say that I'm a fob. And I've never taken offense to that because I'm like, yes, I am. I don't care. Bless you. Thank you. What kind of negative connotations come with that? Because I look at it as very positive. I love being Hmong. I don't care you think that I came fresh off the boat, because I am Hmong. And being able to proudly accept that and accept, like, what do I actually like, and not letting you affect who I am. I'm not going to take away this piece of me just because it was previously associated with you, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I've really made it into my own as opposed to an association of my past.
Strong stuff. That'll be the intro to this. And people are like, what the hell did you do?
I love it. That could be like our thing moving forward.
Yeah, I feel like I've already answered this question of where, like, I was just constantly being told, like, what I should do and how success is and the definition of success. And so when I had done all the things that I wanted to or thought that I should, I was in the awkward moment of like, wow, like, I'm not actually fulfilled. Like, what am I supposed to do next? And I feel like that in itself is a powerful moment for anyone, where it's like, you don't know what's next. And it's like, you then start asking yourself why. And so I do want to say that, I was heavily influenced by my family and some of my friends, but at the end of the day, you should be working on your own time frame, because that's what's most important, and it's your life. And at the end of the day, you have to be happy with the decisions that you're making. So how did you ladies adjust your mindset and move forward?
I feel like I touched base on this already. It's me dabbling into who I am and separating between, is this my thought or is this their thought? Mm-hmm. And once I got a grasp on that, made it a lot easier for me to just take a step forward and do whatever, because I was in a space like you, Ariel, where it's kind of like, okay, well, I did all that I was supposed to. It still didn't work out, and I'm unhappy. Now what? And I had a hard time figuring out like hobbies and interests, because I've been told what to do for so long, and now that I have the free will to do what I want, I'm like, what do I do? Like, who am I? And it was, as you guys said, a self-discovery phase. And it was really exciting to realize that I'm in control of my life. I really wish I had realized that so much earlier on.
Yeah, I think for me, the real big part that I had to work through is not feeling like I had a strong passion or a strong tie to anything. Because for me, I was just so interested in a lot of things. And so because I was so interested in a ton of different things that weren't interrelated with each other, it was just hard for me to make a decision. And so I began pivoting and using that to my advantage, because I became scared of not trying new things. And so that led me to becoming a very free flow and spontaneous person. And so now, as a 26-year-old, I try things without expectation. So I see if I like it, and I give things that seem interesting to me a shot. Just like this podcast. Like, I didn't know how I was going to go, and I just wanted to see, do I like it? And that's one of my mantras, is like, what do I have to lose? And another mantra that I like living by is, you won't know you like it until you try it, which is pretty similar to the one before. But I think it's just important to say, like, you don't need to be so hard on yourself to find things in the first try. And even if you don't get it the first time, it's okay to try something else until you're 100% comfortable with your decision. And along with that, like, I feel people don't seize the opportunity enough. Like, if something can possibly align with you, just try it, just do it, and see if you enjoy it.
One thing to keep in mind too is that, like, the fact that the three of us said that we all had a quarter life crisis,
Yeah.
you're not the only one, you know, like, you're not the only one who's feeling lost in your 20s. And I think that's what helped me too, is like knowing that other people also felt just as chaotic and lost as I did. And I'm like, I'm not the only one running around with my head cut off. So that's what made me feel good too. Like, I could go to my friends and be like, oh my God, I felt like crap today. And they would be like, same girl. And it was just reassuring knowing that I wasn't the only one feeling lost, and we could support each other in that way. And even if there were friends who were like, I had a great week, they understood at the same time. And it was like, I wasn't there to bring them down, even though they had a great week. And that was the best part, is knowing that I'm going to get there someday.
There's something you said earlier, Ariel, when you were talking about your passions, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that I always thought was just like a me thing. And I always felt so embarrassed when I was talking to people, where it's like, I almost felt like people always knew what they really liked or really enjoyed. And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm like you, I'm like, I like fucking everything. And I felt that it was so wrong for me to not have something that I was truly passionate about, or something that I heavily enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what aspect it came about, like watching shows, or like playing sports, or something in the arts. I'm like, I kind of dabble a little bit into everything. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think that's a hard concept to put your head around, because for me, for the longest time, I thought it was a flaw of mine, where I was like, gosh, like, I can't make up my mind. Like, I'm so multi-passionate. But it was really that point, it really turned its head on me when I was like, oh, okay, like, that's actually not a bad thing. And I feel like throughout my entire life, I've really lived by that motto, because, like, I've tried event planning. Like, I love it, but it's not for me. I've tried corporate. I love it, but it's not for me. And it's like allowing yourself and giving yourself that grace to choose, and to be like, you know, it didn't work out the first time, but there's something else for me, right?
Yeah.
And it's just really important to be able to explore those different parts of yourself and those different capacities, because, like I said, you won't know what you like until you try it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what they say,
that.
a jack of all trades is a master of none, but is better than a master of one. That's the quote, right?
Oh, I never got the end of it. I always just got to the, as a master of none. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
It's funny though that you bring that up, because I said that to my sister all the time, of like, I'm just like naturally jealous of people who wake up and like, oh, I'm gonna play basketball, and they play professional basketball. Like, I am jealous of the people who know what they're gonna do from day one. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, You really got your life figured out.
That's how I felt too. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, I just can't specifically focus on the one. And it's really because of what you said. Like, I like all these things, and then I'll try. I'm like, I like it, but not something that I can do like for the rest of my life.
How is society now compared to 20 years ago? 20 years ago, economically was very different, so holding ourselves to those standards is far-fetched. How can we readjust and realign our goals to match where we are socially now?
I can go all day about this, but all I can say is that I think holding ourselves to the standards of our parents and the generations before us is really hard because they lived in a different time economically. They lived in a different time mentally and emotionally. And what I mean by that is things weren't addressed as easily or openly. And, you know, we have the space to do that now, and we're more willing to do that now. So I think that overall, we just shouldn't hold ourselves to those standards because it's just not plausible. I mean, just Google it, right? It's just not the same. Really?
She said, just Google
Just Google it.
It's true though.
It's true. Like I'm not even kidding you. When I was like on the process of even looking for a home, I'm like, why the fuck is this 2-bed, 1-bath, $410? But when I was looking on Redfin, when it was listed 20 years ago by the homeowners, they bought it for $189. Why do you expect me to buy this 810 square foot home that's 2-bed, 1-bath? It makes no sense. Anyways, again, see, I can go on and on about this shit. Anyways, I just think that you, again, readjust and realign your goals to where you are now. People don't know your situation financially, mentally, emotionally, physically. And work with professionals, please. Okay. Your sister who just bought a house is not a professional. Your, friend who knows a friend who is invested in stocks is not a professional. So talk to actual professionals and go from there.
100%. Society today is so different. Like, I had this conversation with my mom, and it also made me realize, like, sometimes getting a fucking house isn't for everybody. Like, I don't know. I had to sit there and really think. I wanted to get a home afterwards because renting was ridiculous. I hated having to fork up like, 1 to 2K per freaking month and know that it's not going anywhere but gone. And I hated that idea. And so I really wanted to like get a house. And then I stopped and think about like, I don't want to wait until I get into a relationship to make it a step to get a home. I want a home for me. Whether that partner is here or not, I still want a home for me. And I was like, I want a house that looks like this and that, blah, blah, the third, the fourth. And I realized that I don't really want a house. I just want a place I can call home. And something that I can be, that is of an investment to me. So an apartment was out of the picture. I would be okay if I was living in a townhome. And then I've also had thoughts about like, I like traveling and I would like to invest into that. And I might just even like get a freaking like travel truck or something, economics today, the way that finances are today, and just everything overall, I don't feel is the same as what it was before, where you had to get the house with the picket fence and all these things by your mid-20s. And if you have that and that's what you want, great. But just understand that, what that used to be, you don't have to do that if it's not fitting for you and your lifestyle. Because I know it's not for me. I'm not shoveling no snow by myself. No way. That's why I'm getting a townhome.
Well, I'm gonna make you madder. Because Dutch, I don't know if you've been to my grandparents' house in Minneapolis, but
I've been there once.
oh, okay. So you guys know, but they own a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home, and it's technically 3 floors if you include the basement. They got it at 70 grand. Yeah.
That's what my parents got their home.
Yeah.
They got it for around 80.
Yeah. And so I bring that up because, like, if you compare yourself and try to give yourself the same expectations as 20 years from now to now, it's just completely unrealistic. And I feel like it's important to say, like, even the smallest things of, like, my parents have tried to talk to me about, oh, you should have kids soon. Really? Do you have the money for it?
Again, in this
Yeah.
economy?
That's what I'm saying, right? It's like just even the smallest decision. Oh, okay. Kids are not a small decision. I'm sorry. They're
Just a
big
little itty bitty one.
Just kidding. But like kids, like having kids back then was a lot less money than it is now. And I feel it's unfortunate for couples who want to have children because let's say there is a family who wants like 6 kids. They can't sometimes just because of their financial situations. So I think it's just completely unrealistic for people to continuously impose their assumptions onto me of you should do this and you should do this and you should do this. But it's like if you were to actually live in my shoes and actually put yourself in my financial situation, you would very quickly realize that the things you had access to back then is things that I don't have access to now.
Yes.
And that's in every single aspect of our lives, whether it's whether it's marriage or kids or education. Things are expensive, and so you can't be holding us to this high threshold of this perfection and success when, you know, things are just up the ass in terms of inflation and financial costs. So just putting that out there that like it's just not the same. And for people to be judging us, millennials and Gen Zs of, oh, there's only one singular way you should be running your life, you just back off. You can't even, you don't even know how to get in Google. Stop.
I am so happy you brought that up because, okay, that's actually why I went for the major I did, because I really liked my sociology professor, and this he was also like the academic chair for the program, or the director of the program. And it was very straightforward and honest. He was like, I understand the difficulties you guys as students nowadays have, because when I was doing my bachelor's, it was all paid for. It was like financial aid covered everything. I did my master's, it was all paid for. And I was only owing like $2,000 after I finished my PhD. And I was sitting in class like, what the fuck? Because it was like mind blowing to understand, like really grasping like the differences in cost. And I'm like, and you're still fucking alive. It's not like that long ago.
Yeah.
I feel like, oh, that was so long ago. But I was like, no, you're still here, buddy. So therefore, why is that inflation has been like, it's gone so bad, and our generation, you get so heavy in debt. And so when I hear these older individuals kind of get at us about like, oh, when I was your age, I already like, when I was with my ex, I was already hearing the way I already had like 6 kids and we were raising them all on our wages at $12. Like, you know how much milk costs at your fucking time?
Do you know eggs?
Yeah.
Freaking toilet paper.
Don't even get me started.
For real. I just bought a
God.
dozen eggs last night, $5 okay?
Yeah.
Don't even get
What
me
was that, a
started.
dozen?
A dozen.
Yep.
Yeah, you're like contemplating like, should I eat half the egg today and half the egg tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard out here. So I don't blame people who choose to not follow the traditional paths of like, go to college, have a kid at this. It's everything is about like, do I even have you're making a conscious decision. I would be more mad at you if because you just don't have that capability in today's world. At least I don't think so. So that's a really good point you brought up. Stop pissed me off. You're right. You did make me mad.
Yeah. I give you a warning.
I told ya.
I forgot about it. I just like, it wasn't even in my brain for the second.
Like I said, I can go on and on about this. All I can say is let's eat the rich.
I already told you guys,
to
and I
pay
guess I'll
taxes.
put it out there. I was going to keep it a secret, but I'm searching for a really, really old husband.
She's looking for a man in finance.
5'6". I'm just finally tired.
85. Blue eyes.
Finally
Crack me
tired.
up.
Okay, I just want to be taken care of.
All right. Well, how do we find new passions in our 20s, and is it ever too late?
No.
Never too late.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, we started this podcast, right? I don't think it's ever too late to find a passion. Would you say it's too late for a 40-year-old to go to school?
No.
No.
Exactly. So it's never too late.
You can learn every day. You can change anything whenever you freaking want to. And I say this because my narrow-minded like self person before it would be like, oh, you're too old to be wearing this, or like, I can't believe this person's wearing that or doing this, doing that. And then the older I've gotten, the more of a hypocrite I became, because I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And it's true. It's because, you know, do what is fulfilling to you. You literally have like, you don't know how much time. You don't know when the hell you're gonna die. You like just live. And there is always going to be judgment on your life, but at least you're being judged for what you fucking like instead of being judged for shit that you don't even care for. So just live the way you want. Seek passion where passion is calling you. And, you know, if at the age of 80 you want to go learn how to tap dance, go the frick ahead.
I was
Do
about to
what
say
is fun
that.
for you.
It's only too late when you're dead.
Yep. I mean, unless you come back a little transparent.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's true. Morbid as that is, I mean, it's only too late when you're gone from this earth. But on the time that you have here with your family and people, like, make the most of it. I mean, there's this really heartwarming story. So I like, oh, this is really cheesy, but what I do on TikTok is I follow this hashtag called HopeCore. There's one of the videos of this 89-year-old man who like started going to a book club because his 4-year-old neighbor wanted him to go because she didn't like that he was alone because he didn't have any family left. And he was like, it's his new passion going to the book club. So it's never too late to find a new passion. And that was his new passion, was going to the book club with his 4-year-old neighbor. And he found a new surge and vibrancy of life. So never too late.
It builds a sense of community.
Yeah.
I have to send you this Australian show. This is a tangent. But yeah, I cried so much in that show. But basically what they do is they pair kindergartners with retirees. Yes! I cried so much in that show. I'll send you a YouTube clip. But basically it's, they send little kids into retirement homes.
What is it called?
I don't know what it's called, but I'll send you it later. But they look at the relationships and the ways that very scientifically, how old people react to younglings, and also like how that develops them, like mentally, physically, psychologically, everything. It's a very heartwarming series.
I think there's a UK version, but it's teenagers and elders. And the elders, like, it started off and the elders are like, we weren't sure how we were going to get on with the teenagers because, you know, adolescents are kind of like standoffish. And at the end of this show, the teenagers were like crying because they're like, we don't want to leave our partners. And so they had made plans to like meet each other once a month. And I cried because it's like the teenagers were like out of their shell too.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I'll have to find that UK version too.
Dynamic.
I
I
know.
love that.
That reminds me of a scene that I watched on YouTube where there's this one guy and they were playing a game with the kindergartners. And so they were all given flashcards and they were all paired up. And so this one guy had like a Asian, like I think he was like 4 or 5-year-old. I have to find the clip later, but they were like, okay, now you are gonna read the words to the kindergartner. And so the white old man, he was just like, oh, I can't read. And he's old. And so the kid was just like, oh, it's okay. And they're just like going off and doing other stuff. But then the next day, they're paired again. And so he brings in a puzzle that's already made and beautiful. And so he's showing it to like the entire class. And so all the kindergartners like come around him and they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And he just like beams up and it makes him so happy because, you know, the day before he was so upset because he couldn't read.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm tearing up already. That's so sweet.
I cried. I was like, oh, it's heartwarming.
But yeah, it's never too late.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I think people think it's too late because they put all these timelines on themselves.
Yeah.
Like we have 80-year-olds running triathlons and like people who are like swimming across lakes and stuff. So for me, that inspires me to not limit myself and to really think about what I can be doing later down the line as well. Because I would never want my future kids or grandkids like looking at me, a fat hag on a like couch or something.
Right.
Like, I want to be doing stuff to inspire other people too.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think about like my mom and our aunts now who like didn't have the opportunity to do things because they were busy raising us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want them to think that it's too late for them to
Yeah.
start something new that they want to do. So why are we limiting ourselves?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the same thing I said about like starting my own business. Is the worst case scenario is you just end up trying getting a new job again. And I do want to touch on like how we find new passions in our 20s. I think for me, like I just have like a little mental list in my head of like what are the things I haven't tried and what are the things I want to do. And like I also love asking my friends for their recommendations. So I know like for Emily, I've asked her like, oh, what are your favorite book clubs and stuff?
Yeah.
So even just like the smallest things like that, like I think it really does take initiative on your part to ask around or to just sort of do the research to what is out there so you get a better understanding of what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And finding the courage to follow through with it. So that's the biggest part, is not backing out of those plans, because then you really won't get to experience it.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. If you haven't already, like, comment, and share. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to leave your comments and anything else down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.